Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Anathema. My name is Lauren Chen. It is so good to see you. We didn't have a show Monday. I was traveling, but it's really good to be back. I almost did not get out of DC until a full day later than I was supposed to. It was a whole struggle. I love flying. I love flying. I love sometimes having my flight canceled and not being compensated with a hotel, having to wait in an airport for hours and hours with the worst, most expensive food. And so I'm very, very happy to be home. We are right now live on X, Twitch, Rumble, Facebook, and Kick. So big thank you, especially to everybody who is in the chat. Inevitable China on Rumble, one of our beloved, awesome mods. Kuda Panda, hi Lauren, he's on Kick. So good to see you guys. We have a lot to talk about today. So first, we're opening with, I got to talk about the Odyssey press store is well underway. And I don't know what I don't know what they're thinking. Bottom line, for all of my coverage related to this upcoming movie, what were they thinking? So woke messaging, just galore. It's almost like they're trying to lose money. I don't know. Is the person who's in charge of this marketing campaign an ex-lover of Christopher Nolan who's rooting for his demise? It almost seems like it, honestly. Then we also have Pope Leo. So he's made headlines for going to Europe, basically going on a whole, I guess you could call it a pro-migrant press tour, lecturing Europeans about how it's their duty to accept all of these young military-aged males who are committing disproportionate amounts of crime into Europe. It's your responsibility. Now, the Vatican, of course, some of the strictest borders you've ever seen, but it's Europe's responsibility. So we're gonna be talking about that. I expect it to be controversial. I know I have very committed Catholic followers. I love you folks, but we got to talk about your boy. Then Mitch McConnell, what's happening with him? He's undergone some sort of health emergency. He's in hospital. No one's really talked to him. It's like, bigger picture. We hope he's safe, praying for him, praying for his family. Why does this keep happening? Why is it so common for politicians to be so old they actually succumb to all of these like age-related illnesses while in office? Maybe we can have that conversation. And African American Vernacular English, also colloquially known as Ebonics, Black English. There are activists now in California, because of course in California, who are saying that we need to accept this in school. We need to be teaching this in school. This needs to be institutionalized. Why though? Why? Okay, so we've, to refresh your memory, we can't have the same voting districts with Black people. That's terrible, awful, racist. Now apparently we can't even have like the same standard English across races. We have to have specific racial dialects, and if we try to assimilate them into that, it's basically slavery 2.0. I'm tired. I'm so tired. I'm tired of all of this. And of course, as always, we have our lol cow of the week videos to go over. So we're going to get to it, but first I will shout out the podcast. If you're an audio only person, please check out the podcast version of this show. It's basically wherever you listen to your podcast. Really appreciate everyone who's liked, followed on there, given us a ratings, except for that one guy who gave us an Apple Podcast rating of 1 star. Hurt my feelings, but yeah. All right, let's get into. Actually, you know what? First, Fidget Guy on Rumble, another one of our mods. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Orthodox, not Catholic, but I like Catholics. I like Catholics too. So, I mean, we'll talk about this more when we get to the actual story, but I'm really tired. I've spoken about this. I'm really tired of Catholic or Christian infighting. Okay, Protestants going at it with the Catholics, Ortho going at it with everybody. Guys, there are atheists out there. There are Muslims out there. There are Jewish people who reject Christ out there. Why are we should absolutely hash out these dogmatic issues and theological issues we have with each other. But I think we cannot lose sight of the bigger picture, which is that there are still a lot of people on the planet who haven't even accepted Christ at all. So why are we dying on hills with each other where there this much bigger issue that we are all facing as Christian brothers and sisters? A lot of people reject Christ entirely. So I see accounts on X especially where it's like their main purpose is to fight with, if they're Protestant, Catholics, Protestant, like whatever it is. And it's just, again, I'm not saying we should ignore theological differences, not saying we shouldn't hash them out. There's a bigger fight to be had. And so, I've gone at it with, X, Y, and Z denomination. Basically, I'm a Calvinist. I go to Southern Baptist Church. I want everybody to believe exactly what I do because I think it's correct. Yes. But I love my Catholic brothers and sisters. I have Catholic family members, right? I love my ortho followers and friends. So let's just let's all get along and keep the aggression and the passion where it feels like. Beef Sleeves on Rumble. Are you Christian, Lauren? Yes, very much so. I was raised Easter Christmas Catholic, but then became born again when I was 16 and was very active in my college ministry. And I was baptized, a believer's baptism by immersion then, and have been Christian ever since. Not that I haven't, fallen away at times, been less or more, uh, I guess, pious, but it's a struggle that I'm hoping to keep to the end of trying to live out Christ's word. And it's probably, especially if you guys know me, past year and a half has been a struggle, right? Being targeted by the DOJ, literally the eye of Sauron upon me from the Biden administration. God is good though. He is good. He's good on the mountaintops, but he's good in the valleys. And honestly, between like faith and family, that's what got me through. That's what got me through the hard times. So I would say Christianity, it's a big part of my life, a big part of it. Um, Fallen Radiant on Twitch. What was your story of becoming born again? What made you find him? I mean, so it's kind of a longer story, but I became very interested in politics and philosophy when I was a teen because I was just cool like that. And my brother, who's older, introduced me to some old Greek stuff. And it was just kind of reading. I first became a deist before I became a Christian. I had a lot of questions about the universe, how life began, what was objective good, what was morality, and I kind of, you know, found deism through things like Platonic theory of forms, theory of the unmoved mover, and then just kind of probing that line of thinking. It's like, all right, well, if there is like an objective truth, an objective God, how do I know him and how do I measure up to that? And Christianity is really the only religion out there that doesn't just diagnose your sin, but offers a solution to it, right? Because Judaism, it's no problem diagnosing sin, same with Islam, but there's no solution. It just you're you're kind of stuck in your illness. Whereas Christianity, that's the one place where you can find freedom from sin is through Christ. And so I've been, I guess, Christian ever since then. But okay, don't take this in the chat as an invitation to be fighting with each other. Yeah, we love our Christian brothers and sisters. Jonathan Swift 89, why did the DOJ go after you? Oh, that is a whole spiel. I've done interviews about this. If you're not familiar with my story, actually, I'll use this opportunity to plug my GiveSendGo, givesendgo.com/Lauren Chen. If you would like to learn more about what exactly I went through with the DOJ, you can read up on it there. Yes, it's a very long story. Revolt 24 on Rumble, being Christian is great, but I'm not on board with the infallibility of the church. Christ is king. I think nothing is infallible except Christ and scripture, in my opinion. So, all right, let's talk about the Odyssey. So we've been covering this movie for weeks now. It's still not even out yet. The movie releases on the 17th. So next Friday, Papa Chen and I are going to be going to see one of the first shows on the 16th. So we will have our review for you guys ready that show on the 17th of Friday. We're going to be talking about it. But the press tour for the movie is well underway. And so this is basically where they're doing a bunch of red carpet stuff where the actors are showing up looking. I think the idea is for them to be looking good. Whether that's been accomplished, we'll take a look. And, the cast is also doing a bunch of interviews supposed to be building up hype for the movie, talking presumably about how great it is, how much fun they had shooting it, how everyone's going to love it. That's fine. Odyssey press tour is taking a little bit of a different approach, though. The first thing you can see is that they've had this red carpet that they're promoting heavily on social media with Elliot Page, who plays this Greek soldier in the film. As you can see, the Odyssey movie official account, they've got a video here of Elliot smiling. Curiously enough, replies are turned off. Interesting. that's usually not a good sign, right? It's usually not a good sign when you have to turn the replies to your post off, especially when you're a marketing campaign. The whole point of you doing this post is presumably to generate hype, to engage with your fans, not to disallow comments entirely. That's not good. And this press junket specifically has been going viral because okay, they we're looking at this video. If you're listening to this as a podcast, what you're missing is that next to Elliot Page is perhaps the tallest, most statuesque security personnel I've ever seen in my entire life. Like they kind of set Elliot up here, if you're asking me. The security guard, this random guy, absolutely mocking Elliot Page. I'm serious, like Elliot looks like a child next to this piece as security guard. Literally doesn't even come up to his feet. It's like step level. Looks like a total child. Not to mention whoever styled Paige here doing her no favors. The suit is so baggy. It looks like a little kid. Looks like a little kid wearing a Big Brother's suit. So it's giving pathetic. Basically, if this is your Greek soldier in your Odyssey film, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. And obviously, I mean, this clip has 12 million views, basically everyone ripping into it. It's not putting your best foot forward. I've said this before, talking about this movie. If I'm paying 20 some dollars to see this film in IMAX, I shouldn't have to be the one doing the acting, pretending like it's in any way believable that Elliot Page is some Greek soldier. It's insane. And yeah, okay, so the new redneck, my wife is 4'9" and she looks bigger than Paige. According to the internet, Elliot Page is 5'1". Now, actors often lie about their heights to try to seem taller. Would not be surprised if Paige was even shorter than that. So it's like, not only are you clearly biologically a woman, you're a short one, a petite little woman on top of that. Duplicate edge on X? Is that a woman's blazer? Honestly, is that a child's blazer? Is what I'm asking. Hailstorm72 on Twitch, Tom Cruise is short. Shrug. Okay, so when people say Tom Cruise is short, Tom Cruise is like 5'7", which yeah, it's below average. I think the average for a guy is like 5'9". So yeah, he's short. Elliot Page is like a half a foot shorter than that. So it's not really comparable. Oh, book, Rumble. Well, they were smaller back then, weren't they? I mean, I suppose, but the thing is, if that's the line you're going through, then you have to cast everybody smaller. So Elliot Page looks proportionately the same size, but as it so stands, Elliot Page is like, yeah, gonna be a foot shorter than all the other all the other the men who are in the Odyssey. See Warner 312, Twitch, not even just their height, their frame. Yes, just it's not believable, not believable. We also have some shots of Zendaya here. Now, Zendaya, she plays Athena, goddess of wisdom, who kind of is guiding Odysseus through his journey back home. What I find so interesting is that we've seen footage or like stills of Zendaya in this film. And I'm sorry, but the styling just absolutely doing her no favors whatsoever. I know people, it's a matter of debate on social media whether Zendaya is pretty. I happen to think that she is. But what I think is not debatable is that they were not doing her any favors in this film in terms of styling. Because look, here, this like press tour, she's kind of giving a nod to look Greek armor for the bodice of her dress. She's got this very ethereal makeup going on. I think she looks really pretty. She looks good here. She would have gotten a lot less flack if this is how they had styled her in the film. But it seems like they almost were making a concerted effort to make their female actresses look kind of, I don't know, homely. We saw this with Zendaya. We also saw this with Lupita Nyong'o, who's supposed to play Helen of Troy. Like, why are you trying to make them look bad? Because, I mean, historically, they wouldn't have had makeup back then. Okay, A, they actually did use makeup in ancient Greece, things like kohl around the eyes. So they did have a form of cosmetics. But also, B, you can't really play that card specifically when you're choosing to have Black Athena and Black Helen of Troy. It's like, okay, we're going to go with the historical accuracy and making them all making the woman look as bad as possible, but then also blackwash. Like, no, would it have killed you to try to make them look a little nicer? Axel Foley, they do the same thing with video game women. They do. I think it's okay. So this is some intersexual female competition on the part of the wardrobe and makeup people. You cannot convince me otherwise. They are trying to make them look bad. It's not good. It's not good. So anyway, I think Zendaya looks pretty here. Wait, there's another. Did I get there? I thought I had another thing saved of like another outfit. Anyway, she's looking good on the press tour. So I don't understand why they had to make her look so dour as Athena. It's like she's playing a goddess. Is it really that unbelievable that maybe a goddess would have access to some skincare, some eyeliner? Okay, so in addition to that, we also have specifically Lupita Nyong'o, so who plays Helen of Troy, and a John Leguizamo, who's in this as well, just running their mouths during interviews. And like we're gonna go over some of the retarded woke stuff they're saying, but I actually have a question. Is media trading not a thing anymore in Hollywood? Like coaching actors on how to promote their films, because there's a lot of BS jobs in Hollywood that still exist. Most jobs in Hollywood honestly are kind of BS, where it's like, I don't know, your assistant's assistant, like, oh, I oversee fake food specific, like, just like random stuff like that, which like you could probably like put that under someone else's responsibility and it would be fine. But a job that I actually unironically think is important is media training, like PR people, especially when you're promoting a film. I mean, a lot of you might think this should be intuitive and should go without saying, but remember, a lot of actors are dumb. Coaching actors on how to handle interviews when you're promoting something, right? Because these interviews, they're not just like, here's your opportunity to say whatever you want, actor or actress. It's like, no, you are a representative of the film. You are supposed to be hyping people up to see this movie. We have a lot invested in you in this film financially. And so this is part of your contractual obligation surrounding the film. And I mean that seriously. Like if you are an actor, almost guaranteed you have promotion of the film as a part of your contract. So no, this isn't just like, oh, my time to say whatever I want. You are a spokesperson for the film. So yeah, I think it's not a bad thing for some media people to meet with the actors and say like, hey, number one, these are some controversies we've seen not play well for other films. So, let's try to stay away from, sensitive political issues. Hey, if this, sometimes it's like inter colleague struggle. Like, hey, if anyone mentions maybe this controversy, here's something you can say to kind of deflect and get back on the issue of the film. Here are some talking points we think will really like get audiences excited, like that kind of thing. I don't think that's too much to ask for an actor to have to do, but it seems like that is not being done at all based on the retarded stuff that specifically Lupita Nyong'o is saying about this film. So we earlier saw an interview where she was basically saying, I had never even heard of the Odyssey before I got offered this role. It's like, ma'am, didn't you like go to an Ivy League school or like some prestigious university to study theater and you never heard of the Odyssey? So first off, that's an indictment against like Western education. But not exactly the energy you should be bringing to this role. You should all we all know how important the Odyssey is as a tale. It's this like, universal myth surrounding struggle, the urge to return home, go against the odds. But no, like, I had no idea what it was. Really, that's what you want to be coming with. Okay, we'll see how it works out for you. But now she's also chosen to chastise Homer, the epic poet who wrote this, for like not including enough feminine characters in this, which by the way is also untrue. If you look at the Odyssey, I mean, Penelope's this like huge central figure in the actual Odyssey. She plays a really big role, is like a pillar of morality of what a wife should be, loyal to her husband. And so I don't even know what Lupita's going on about here, but let's listen to it.
I'd be like, so Homer, how do you feel about the screen time given to these women, considering how little you spend with them?
Oh.
Okay.
And then do you lean forward and look at him like that?
Yes, like, remember us?
What, like really? Okay, Hollywood challenge, not disrespect the thing you're adapting, impossible, right? Apparently, What would make you say this? Why? Like, did we not learn already from Rachel Zegler dissing Snow White? Why do these actors insist on disrespecting the works that they are promoting? We have this as well about how the Odyssey was written from a male perspective, because apparently that's a bad thing now.
When you read the Iliad and the Odyssey, very little time is spent in the perspective of the women.
Right.
Right? It's told from a very masculine side of things.
Right.
But this film takes time to really consider things from the female perspective. And so we see in Helen and Clytemnestra how this war has affected them both.
Yeah.
And they respond to it very differently because their experience of it is very different.
Mhm.
And so for me, that was very enriching to take the time to kind of like humanize them and consider what this time could have looked like for them.
Okay, so I haven't seen this yet, but I can bet you any money that basically they're going to try to turn Helen into a victim of all this. And it was all the men's fault, and she didn't do nothing. It wasn't her fault at all, which is kind of not what the Odyssey actually is about. But of course, they're going with the feminist retelling of it. This is giving major "it's not about you" vibes, though. Like, Helen is not the main character of the Odyssey. It's actually Odysseus. It's okay that it's mostly centered on his perspective. It is his story. Why is that? That's not automatically a diss against women. There are female characters in this. I mean, a lot of the challenges that Odysseus faces relate to, Circe, Calypso. These are female characters. Why? Ubuk on Rumble. Geez, the division of labor was needed back then. I know. Gosh dang you, Homer, for not being a feminist in ancient Greece. CIA torture camp on Rumble. File a complaint with HR about Homer. So yeah, this is just me. If I were the studio, this would not be how I would coach my actors to promote our film. Personally. Especially, we saw this article talking about how, like, oh yeah, the Odyssey is going to do well because people have nostalgia. Okay, maybe that would be true if it weren't for the absolute progressive woke modern messaging surrounding this film. So yeah, we have that from Lupita Nyong'o. Bold move. We'll see how it pays off. And then we also have, for some reason, John Leguizamo, probably saying that wrong. I know this actor. You'll recognize him. I just don't know how to say his last name. He's in this as well. He is using the time leading up to the film's release to complain about colonialism and how Latin people were colonized. Again, how is this going to help us sell tickets to see the Odyssey? The Odyssey? Okay, you are not just an individual, okay? You are part of this movie's marketing campaign. What do you do? Why does it seem like these actors are actively trying to torpedo their film? So I think, like, unless Hollywood does something to address this, we're going to keep seeing, we kind of saw this with Supergirl 2, we're going to keep seeing actors running their mouths, just destroying films. And I think studios are going to need to be a little bit explicit as to what is and what is not allowed in the press stores if they keep losing hundreds of millions of dollars, potentially due to the things their actors are saying. So let's look at that.
The cultural annihilation that happened to Latin people is the worst in the history of the world. And then
is that true though? The worst in the history of the world? The worst I mean, there are entire people groups who are just gone, just not around anymore. There have been actual genocides like that where there's nothing left. So is it true that it's the worst in the world?
The theft of all our wealth and gold, and our gold funded the second half of the Renaissance, the Enlightenment period, and the silver funded Asia. And so it was like 500,000.
Oh, so it's not just Europe that, like, Latin people are responsible for the success of. It's also Asia, apparently. Okay, so we was financing Europe and Asia now. Okay, wow, lot of success built on the backs of these Latin people. Very impressive.
Tons of gold that was taken from us. But then it talks about all the oppression, all our history, our contributions, scientists. It's a powerful read.
And all the different, like whether it's the Brits or the Spanish, all these different cultures coming in and extracting these resources.
That was really important for me, because you wonder, like, here we are, Latin people, 500 years after the conquest, and where are we? Why aren't we further up in the food chain? And then you start.
I mean, I could give you some explanations for that. You probably would not like it, though. Why aren't we further up in the food chain? Okay, so we hear this complaint from often African activists as well, or Black activists. It's like, oh, it's due to colonialism, and we are so far behind. Our wealth was extracted from us. Here's the thing about resources. You can only claim that you lost out on the wealth from resources due to colonialism if you yourself had intended on utilizing those resources to begin with, right? Because otherwise, it's like, what were you going to do with them? And I mean this genuinely, right? If you look at a lot of these like Latin American or African places where there was resource extraction, mostly these are resources that the locals didn't even know were there because they hadn't developed mining, they hadn't developed metallurgy. So there would be no way without Europeans there that they would have been able to harness it for themselves. So without Europeans coming over and, like taking the gold or the silver, it's not as if left to their own devices, these people would have been able to mine it and sell it for profit, because they had literally hundreds or thousands of years to do just that. And they weren't able to, right? A lot of these places, like, they hadn't even developed metalworking. So JJ on X, go eat cats and dogs, Chinese lady. Well, at least you know what the Chinese were able to figure out. The Chinese were able to figure out like how metal worked. That's pretty impressive. I think we had the wheel, we had a written language, we had paper, a lot of inventions. Actually, one of the oldest civilizations the world has ever known. Can't say the same, I'm sorry, for like a lot of these African communities, a lot of these Latin American communities. No, you can't just blame the white man for all of your problems, right? And actually, we're going to look at a video, we're going to be responding one later, that examines the curious fact that a lot of the places that are kind of symbols of poverty nowadays, like Ethiopia, were never actually colonized. They never actually were colonized. Whereas you look at Asia, some of the places that were colonized, whether that's, somewhere like Hong Kong, like Vietnam, they're doing exceedingly well financially, a lot better than some of these places that had never been colonized. Now, this is not me making the argument for colonization, because I'm a small government person, right? I believe in self-determination. Colonization goes against all of that. Representation without taxation, that's fine. Like, you guys know, I'm not a bootlicker when it comes to the government. But what I'm trying to illustrate here is that you cannot unendingly blame colonization for ongoing poverty. It just doesn't work like that. Doesn't mean colonization was good, but it just means that it's not the carte blanche, like, oh, I guess we're just doomed to poverty forever. Nothing is our fault when it comes to a failure to develop. It doesn't work like that, guys. It doesn't work like that. John Leguizamo, whatever your name is. We have more of his interview though. Let's finish this clip.
To understand all the practices and oppression that goes into keeping people down, and so that's it makes you angry. You go through the 5 stages of grief with this book. You get rage, you get depressed, you start to feel overlooked, and then eventually you come to terms with it.
So if I had hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, personally, I would not incorporate racial grievance into the marketing of my film. Maybe that's just me. I don't have a marketing degree, but that's I don't think that's a winning message. I don't know. Electronic Man on Twitch, good to see you again. He says Singapore was a colony and they're practically Atlantis today. Yeah, no, I mean, Singapore, Vietnam, Hong Kong, a lot of these places are doing amazingly well. It's just, you can't say, oh, Europeans colonized us, therefore that is why we can't keep a well-functioning hundreds of years later. It doesn't really make sense. And actually, I don't know. So you guys need to follow Callum, Britannica Politica. on YouTube if you don't already. He does like these crazy tourism videos where he goes to places like South Africa, Rhodesia, Afghanistan for what he calls just tourism, but it's a great on the ground look at what life in these places is actually like. And there are places like in South Africa, Rhodesia, where things have measurably gotten worse than they were under colonialism, even for the people around. And I'm not saying that life under colonialism was good for these people, but at least you didn't have as much random murder on the streets. So yeah, you can't blame colonialism for the crime either. Dan9847 on Twitch. It's funny how he's speaking to someone insufferably upper class as well. Her family likely owned slaves, but he would never want to be interviewed by someone working class. I mean, like all of this racial grievance stuff, it is upper class virtue signaling. Like working class people generally don't have time for this nonsense. They have actual things to worry about than just, waxing poetic about how Latin American wealth was plundered over blah, 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 blah. It's just, yeah. B Vargas 78 on Twitch. Rhodesia and apartheid South Africa, I don't agree with it, but they were good administrators compared to the corrupt ANC. Well, that's the thing. Like, there's actually been like devolution when it comes to South African standard of living. I mean, there's like that joke. What is it? What did they have before? How did they keep things light at night in South Africa before candles and fire? Light bulbs. Like, it's like we're going backwards in time. Things are getting worse. Okay, so I'm also getting a notification that apparently the Rupert Lowe interview with Joe Rogan has just been released. Okay, so I wish it had been released a little bit earlier. We could have reacted to some clips. Okay, at the very least, we're going to talk about it on Friday's show, though. But yeah, so when it comes to the Odyssey, at least, critic reviews are good so far, but we know that doesn't really mean much. Oftentimes, the critics and the audiences nowadays are at odds, and positive critical reviews don't mean that a movie's going to do well. Now, am I as sure that the Odyssey is going to bomb like I was Supergirl? No, I'm not. I mean, people love Christopher Nolan. He's got a lot of goodwill amongst audiences and critics. So, I'm not saying this movie is going to bomb, but it just seems like they're making choices that I just wouldn't be making if I were worried about the financial wealth or health of this film. Starkid on Kicks, Nico and Alex Jones debate is soon as well. Oh, that's something that I definitely want to watch, and we'll probably go over as well. Zayaba on Rumble, are you going to watch Nico versus Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes? Oh, 100%. 100%. And we're probably going to respond to that maybe Friday. We could try, or do you guys want to watch that live? I don't know exactly when it is. So potentially we watch it on stream. We're going to be going for it's in 1 minute. Do you guys want to watch it live? Is that going to be too boring? It's always kind of hard. It's always kind of hard when you're watching something like live and not having clips. You run the risk of just having to sit through a bunch of boring stuff. Not that I'm saying that the debate is going to be boring, but I usually like to react to highlights. So yeah, that makes it a little bit harder. Let's turn now to the Pope. Let's look at the Pope. So, Catholics who are more conservative, they've been having a little bit of a rough go at it, right? The previous Pope, Pope Francis, socially liberal. There was hope that this Pope would be a little bit more of a traditionalist. The Catholic Church has remained very firm on things like no women clergy. We are not going to be same-sex marriage is not part of sacrament, stuff like that. But they're very liberal on social issues. And now we have Pope Leo coming and basically lecturing Europeans and Western countries on how we need to be taking in migrants, fully going into the open borders, progressive messaging. Fallen Radiant, live is hard, highlights are better. Yeah, I agree. So we're probably on Friday's show, we're probably going to be reacting to Rupert Lowe on Joe Rogan and Nick Fuentes and Sneeko. Samuel, the infamous one, debates are unproductive theater. I think that is often true, but not always. I think there are really good debates out there where you have, two people who are really on top of the subject, who are really passionate about it. I think debates are really useful for highlighting the differences in like both positions. Hopefully there's an effort to get to the truth, but I think, yeah, a lot of the times, especially if you're debating with some sophists, debates are basically just political theater. I'm thinking of people like, Destiny. I don't think there's a lot of, I don't know, utility to that necessarily, but they are entertaining. They are entertaining. Mactronic Man, I can't help but doubt Nico's debate skills. He's not a stupid guy. He's not. And I disagree with him on the issue of Islam. Obviously, I'm Christian, but I am looking forward to it. All right, so here we have some of the footage that kind of has been going around on social media. Visigrad24, the account on X. Pope Leo visited Lampedusa today to highlight the humanitarian crisis for the migrants arriving there. He prayed for the migrants who have died at sea, called for compassion, safe harbors, and legal pathways for migrants. He laid a wreath at a migrant cemetery, visited the Gateway to Europe monument, met migrant families, and thanked the Lampedusans for being good Samaritans. Tens of thousands of illegal migrants have arrived in Europe via Lampedusa in the past few years. So here's the thing. Where is the Pope commenting on, the grooming gang crisis, the crisis of rapes and, crime that's overtaking Europe at the hands disproportionately of these migrants? Where is the commentary there? It's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to see this as just general goodwill and not actually political activism, right? Because I kind of feel like if you care about the migrants so much, you would be spending more time trying to proselytize, trying to make changes for them in their own countries, instead of just lecturing Europeans and Westerners about how we need to take them in. And this what really got me, and like what made me so mad is we have this video here. The audio there is useless, but Pope Leo shook the hands of each of these 20 migrants who just arrived to Europe during his visit to Lampedusa on July 4th, reminding everyone that all human life carries immeasurable worth. Now, if you're listening to this, what you won't be able to see is that all of these migrants are young men. They're all young men. Now, I think he does shake the hands of a few women later on, but these are mostly young men. So, okay, as a woman, as a young woman with kids, why is the Pope lecturing me about my need to be accepting toward these young men who are disproportionately way more likely to try to assault me, to try to rob me, with seemingly little to no concern for my safety or the safety of my kids? Like, why is the impetus on me to be accepting, for me to be the one who is welcoming to these men? Don't these men have any responsibility to their own countries to try to make it better? Right? What these young men, what are they fleeing? Right? Persecution from like their own countrymen, other young men who probably they should be standing up to take their country back, to make it better. Why is the moral weight here on the women and children of the West to just accept the disproportionate likelihood of these men committing crimes, or the young men of the West to have to work their butts off to provide for these young men because these men aren't going to be working? Like, why is that? That just seems kind of ridiculous to me. And I feel like the fact that the Pope here is basically just promoting these economic migrants, and honestly it delegitimizes actual refugees who are, genuinely fleeing from persecution. Like, Christians are the most persecuted group on the planet in terms of like religion. Why are we as Christians spending so much time covering for like the random Muslim men instead of like, if we're going to bring anyone over, should we not be focusing more on Christians? Like the white South Africans who are Christian, who actually are being murdered for their skin color. Why is it only why is it only young Muslim men? I don't know, that the Pope is standing up for. It seems strange to me. Ubuk on Rumble, not a single one will be sheltered and fed in Vatican City. And that's the thing. You want to hear about strict borders? Vatican City has extremely strict borders. Some of the strictest security literally on the planet. So why don't they take in some migrants? I don't know. It seems like they'd be well placed to do it. They're pretty close, right? This is all happening in Europe, Italy, not far from North Africa. Dan9847 on Twitch, even heaven has gates, like that sort of thing. And, you know, obviously these young men want a better life for themselves. That's fine. But why should I prioritize their well-being, making it my responsibility to the detriment of my own neighbors, of my own children? Why? Like, it's funny, like when progressives and progressive Christians talk about love thy neighbor, 99% of the time they're referring to like some brown Muslim refugee instead of your own kids, your actual literal neighbors who are from your own community and are also Christian. It's just weird. It's weird, and I'm sorry, but I'm too cynical at this point to try to be guilted into supporting an invasion, what is clearly an invasion at this point. I don't think, and I don't think it's helping these countries get any better either. It's basically a brain drain, right? The most ambitious and probably like the smartest ones from these countries still not saying much, but those are the ones who are leaving. There's no urgency. There's no sense to make things better for the people who are left back home. No, this is not how you fix things, by basically trying to empty the third world into Europe. Yeah, Signal of the Cross, great point. Vatican City bans illegal immigration with huge fines and jail time. Maybe the Pope should put his money where his mouth is. And yeah, this isn't new from Pope Leo. We have this older video from Ollie London. This is October last year. Pope Leo says Americans who support migrants being deported aren't really pro-life. Okay, explain that to me, Pope Leo.
Someone who says I'm against abortion but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life.
I mean, they're not really the same thing, are they? Not really, like killing an innocent baby versus executing a rapist or a murderer. Little bit of a different scenario. So that's ridiculous. I disagree with that entirely. You could be for the death penalty but not for killing an innocent child. I actually think that's very morally consistent.
So someone who says that I'm against abortion, but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life.
Kind of sounds like some liberal BS there. Like, what? You don't want to kill this innocent baby, yet you also think that there should be borders? Kind of a hypocrite, aren't you? Like, what? What is it? That's just, I'm sorry, but that's just delegitimizing the pro-life argument, okay? You could be pro-life, but not literally want open borders. Like, hang on, you don't support killing babies, yet you don't want this homeless man to live in your house with you? Doesn't that seem a little bit like a double standard? Like, no, actually, totally not the same thing. What do you mean?
So they're very complex issues.
Not really.
I don't know if anyone has all the truth on them, but I would ask first and foremost that there be greater respect for one another and that we search together.
What about, hey, how about this? What about respect for the American taxpayer who is now absolutely burdened trying to provide for all, like the majority of illegal immigrants are on some form of welfare? Where's the respect for them? They didn't approve of this. Right? It's not the same thing as like a church tithe, which is voluntary. This is not something that like the American people voted and agreed on. This is something that's being done to them against their will. Where's the respect for them?
Both as human beings, in that case as American citizens or citizens of the state of Illinois, as well as Catholics, to say we need to, really look closely at all of these ethical issues and to find the way forward as church. The church teaching on each one of those issues is very clear.
Anyway, so there you go. Oh yeah, and so like he had a entire speech. It says Pope Leo at Mass. He says in Lampedusa, Europe is able to confront the crisis in an organic way, placing first aid within a long-term strategic plan capable of welcoming, protecting, promoting, and integrating migrants, and at the same time working for development so that no one is forced to immigrate. Let's how about we place most of the emphasis on that last part? Most of the emphasis on there. Speaks out against deportations as well.
Days ago, we heard Matthew's Gospel, chapter 25, which says, Jesus says very clearly, at the end of the world, we're going to be asked, how did you receive the foreigner? Did you receive him and welcome him or not? And I think that there's a deep reflection that needs to be made in terms of what's happening. Many people who have lived for years and years and years, never causing problems, have been deeply affected.
Okay, but they are causing problems, right? They are causing that's a lie. Okay, we hear this from the liberal media and apparently the Pope as well. Like, they're these illegal immigrants. They're just here. They're not causing problems. Again, most of them are receiving welfare. Most of them are on benefits that the American taxpayer has to pay for. I think it's like due to illegal immigration, like housing prices have risen around 30%. I saw a study. That's not even to mention things like wage stagnation, because illegal immigration drives wages down. They're acting like this doesn't affect you. Like, why do you even care? You should care a lot. This is affecting you in basically every way: cost of living, your housing, the economy, job market, elections. No, I don't think being a Christian means you just have to accept an invasion of your country. It's never meant this. It's never meant that, save for the past 15 years. So I think historically speaking, there's good precedent to say, actually, no, we should be allowed to have a country and not just roll over. Break and K on Twitch. Why does the rest of the world feel entitled to the United States taxpayer money? This frustrates me to no end. So realistically speaking, the United States, in a lot of countries, especially in Europe, overseas, does not have the best reputation. American hate is very, very common, right? People love to hate on Americans, especially in the UK and Australia and Canada. It's seen as oat and culture to look down your nose at Americans for being uncivilized with their guns and their freedom, and it's seen as kind of like we're laughing at Americans, I think, is how a lot of Europeans, Canadians, Australians look at it. At the same time, though, anytime, we've seen this with the State Department and DOJ, anytime Americans actually stop and say, hang on a second, why are we funding all of these people who hate us? Maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we take care of our own first. Then it's like the world is ending. Then it's like, how could you? How could you? It's like, wait a second. You hate us. You hate us. You don't give Americans any goodwill for all of the aid they give to all of these other countries, but you do manage to freak out when it stops. So it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Americans get hated on. And then if they decide they don't want to fund the world, they get hated on even more for stopping it. You're not getting any goodwill as Americans for the good you do. You just get hate if you want to stop it. It's a very toxic relationship. And growing up in Canada, I saw that all the time. And it's not fair. I understand criticizing American foreign policy. That's fine. Even Americans do that all the time. But I think a lot of places go beyond that. And they actually they think the American government represents the American people, which of course we know is not true for any country, but that's how a lot of the rest of the world looks at America, if we're being honest. Yep. And the Pope also had this whole address to migrants.
Queridos migrantes,
dear migrants, before saying anything else to you, bow before your dignity.
No son
you are not
números
just
ni
numbers or
expedientes.
files.
Ustedes son
people
personas con una familia.
Who've left behind family. Okay. Where is this sympathy, though, for the Europeans? That's what I want to know. Where is this sympathy for the Europeans who have to financially support this, who are foregoing their own families because they now have to pay for migrant families, who are the victims of migrant crimes? Where's the sympathy for them? Oh, yeah. So here it is. Zendaya in another Odyssey look. She looks great here. This is way more reminiscent of what you'd think an actual Greek goddess would look like versus how she is styled in the film. I don't know. Kind of seems like they're making her look bad on possible, if I could say that. Just it's not it's not going to go well, if you ask me. It's not going to go well. All right, now let's turn to African American vernacular English. Oh, and by the way, no, hang on. Going out of order, but John Leguizamo, he did that whole spiel against Europeans colonizing Latin America. He's been kind of taken to task by a lot of historians. This is a Grok synopsis. Promoting his role in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, Leguizamo said Spaniards took 500,000 tons of gold from Latin people to fund the Renaissance's second half, leaving ongoing oppression. Again, what does that have to do with The Odyssey, the film? I don't know. Historians corrected that worldwide gold mining totals Historians corrected that worldwide gold mining totals just 220,000 tons, with Spain extracting only 180 tons from the Americas, and the Renaissance began over a century earlier in Italy. Critics noted his conquistador ancestor from a 2022 genealogy show and Aztec human sacrifices that Christianity later ended. Many blamed Latin America's issues on later corruption rather than colonial times. Yeah, so he got kind of, community noted, to say the least. But here, let's talk about Black English. Apparently, some people want this taught now in schools, or at least accepted. It says, Black Californians United for Early Care and Education urges state-funded preschools to recognize African-American vernacular English as a legitimate home language like Spanish or Mandarin to build Black children's literacy and confidence. The group has shared briefs, webinars, and training over 18 months, drawing from California's bilingual preschool policies and linguistic research, showing dialect affirmation boosts skills. A New York Post article sparked backlash, recalling the 1996 Oakland Ebonics debate, with critics calling it a failed idea, while supporters say it addressed real needs amid equity tensions. Okay, here's the thing. If you're in America, you need to learn English. I say that as someone who, like, my father, his mother tongue is not English. Okay. My mother, her mother tongue is actually also not English. My father grew up speaking Chinese. My mother grew up speaking French. Both of them raised me and my brother speaking English. Okay. I think learning other languages is great and important. I want my kids to grow up multilingual, but if you're in America, you need to be able to speak English. How can you have fellowship with your neighbors, with other Americans, if you don't speak English? And so, yes, if you're Mexican, you need to speak English. If you're Chinese, you need to speak English. Wait for it. If you're Black, you also need to speak English in a way where other people can understand it as English. Okay? So what we are seeing real time is the Black community, ironically, just getting more and more segregated because of these retarded progressive social policies. Okay, this is not integration. It's not. Okay, we've seen that progressives freaked out at the idea that you can't have special Black majority voting districts. Now progressives want even more special carve outs for Black students, as if that's going to help their performance, honestly, which is obviously not. But all it is it's going to make racial tensions worse. If we can't even understand each other, if Black students are given passes for incorrect language, incorrect grammar because they're Black, it's just ridiculous. This is not going to make things better for anybody. And of course, people are memeing on this online because it's hilarious that it's even being discussed. Axel Foley on Rumble. It's funny how the minute rap starts dying out, Ebonics starts dying out with it. I very firmly believe. Okay, so there are several conspiracy theories that I'm 100% locked in on right now. Number one, that ticks are a bioweapon that they're being released in the millions in order to spread things like alpha-gal syndrome, to reduce our consumption of red meat. There are WEF and IMF people talking about this, not claiming that we're doing it, we're spreading it, but saying how it's possible. And if we did this, I guess we would be able to tackle climate change better. They're doing it to you. They are. I'm 100% convinced about this. Farmers are reporting that they're finding giant boxes of ticks in their fields. There are reports of pilots saying that they were paid to drop tick boxes. Look this up. I'm not crazy. This is a thing that's happening. Okay, so the ticks, I'm 100% to believe like it is, the government, NGOs, someone's pushing ticks. Other conspiracy theory is rap. Okay, rap was being pushed by USAID as a way to mainstream ghetto Black culture. Okay, so we saw like with last fall, the first time in like a generation, there was no rap song in the top whatever, on Billboard in the charts. Lizzo's album now also flopping. I do think that USAID was pouring money into entertainment media, music, but also like different shows in order to try and like promote honestly just degeneracy, whether that's like, yeah, LGBT stuff, but also like hip hop, Black culture as well. And as a form of like, I don't know, Black empowerment, just subversion. But I believe that fully. I don't really remember what I was talking about leading up to this, but oh yeah. So now we have like the African American vernacular English. Let's see what the New York Post says about it. Activists demand Black English be pushed on kids in California preschools. Okay. The Black Californians United for Early Care and Education is part of a movement to challenge, quote, harmful language hierarchies and affirm Black English as a legitimate rule-governed language rooted in Black history, culture, and community. The movement also seeks to, quote, address how language bias shows up in early learning spaces and how it can be dismantled. Well, there obviously should be like language bias. I'm sorry. Okay, even if African American vernacular English is a distinct language, that still doesn't change the fact that you should be learning English in schools in America, right? Speak whatever you want at home, fine. But if you go to school, you should be held to the same standard of regular American English that anyone else is, and that any Chinese kid is held to, that any Spanish-speaking kid is held to. The movement also seeks, it says, to, quote, address how language bias, shows up and how it can be dismantled. I don't want my son to walk into any room and feel like his voice is not valued or his perspective can't be heard because he's not saying it in one way or the other. The co-founder of Black ECE, Ashley Williams, told PBS. Okay, but here's the thing. They're not just saying, hey, this is our language, this is how we speak at home. They're also saying, and you have to accept it. And you have to see it as just as legitimate as yours, which is insane. Okay, fine. Speak however you want at home. Okay, we have that like, there's kind of like Fringlish, which is very common in Quebec, where it's like French and English melded together. But no one is trying to legitimize that as like, oh no, we need books in this. Like it needs to be seen as totally valid. This is ridiculous. Okay. And the people who are behind this are only going to be punishing their kids too, by the way. They're so high on their own like victimhood mindset. They're going to raise their kids in a way where they're not going to fit in a professional environment because they're going to sound uneducated because they are. She also remembered how speaking Black English is full of slangs and grammatical errors, so it came with a lot of embarrassment. Okay. It says California released a plan promoting early dual language learning and calling on the state's education system to support bilingual children in their development in 2020, but the advocacy group believes that Black vernacular should be included. Oh my goodness. We talk about multilinguals, but we don't include Black children who may be African American English speakers. Williams also recalled her experiences in having to, quote, talk white and talking in her comfortable English and feeling insecure. Says around 20% of American children and 44% of 5 to 17-year-olds in California are considered to be bilingual. However, only 89% of African Americans solely speak English at home. What? My goodness. Mr. Lee Sensei on Twitch. Hi, Lauren. Hey, how are you doing? Mactronic Man, I'm picturing a white woman teaching this to a class full of students. LMAO. I mean, probably. I just can't imagine this going well. Axel Foley on Rumble, I'd love to see the grades of the people trying to keep Ebonics alive, especially in language arts. Dandy Snake on Twitch, destroying a people's language is part of genocide. But the Black people's language is English, though. No one's trying to destroy English. Like they already no longer speak whatever African language they would have spoken when they were, first brought to the Americas. It's like I keep talking about this. You can't have a multiracial society if you keep trying to find ways to segregate your society on the basis of race. It doesn't work, right? Like, oh, we're multiracial, we are all Americans, but also we can't have the same voting districts. Also, we can't have the same language. We just speak differently. You have to accept that. Like, no. Why? Like, when did it become the radical position to be like, hey, if this is a melting pot, then maybe there should be some assimilation, some integration? Yeah. Yep. Okay. So now let's change gears and talk about Mitch McConnell. So I am not really a fan of Mitch McConnell. If you ask me, he represents, kind of the old guard establishment Republican Party, the party of Bush, part of the Uniparty. This is someone who, as basically at every point he could, tried to stand against President Trump's agenda, most notably lately by opposing the Save America Act and national voter ID. Insane. But we offer prayers to him and his family because he's been going through some health issues. We have this from X. The 84-year-old Kentucky Republican was admitted to the hospital on June 14th, 2026, so a while ago at this point, following a 911 call reporting him unconscious with CPR underway. His team has shared minimal details, saying he's improving and working on Senate matters, but voices like Laura Loomer claimed he's brain dead and accused a cover-up to stall the Save America Act voter ID bill. GOP allies countered reports of recent 20-minute calls where McConnell discussed Iran, Ukraine, and Senate history, describing him as fully engaged and strong voice, though skeptics questioned the accounts amid his past health issues. So if you guys remember, several years ago at this point, there was footage of McConnell doing a press conference and seemingly having a bit of a moment on camera where he seemed to, I guess, not lose consciousness, but almost become like unresponsive mentally. And we just like have this type of footage now where it's strange how it's so normalized to have like these geriatric individuals in charge of government. And this also, like, we saw what happened with Joe Biden. I'm not trying to be ageist, but clearly these are individuals who are of like declining mental health. Right? Can I say that without offending anybody? Right? It's just one of the things that happens as we get older. Oh, most of the time, there are some people who like stay mentally sharp to the end, but it's very common for there to be a mental decline as well. And I don't think it's crazy that, if you are a public servant, a politician, you should still be expected to be mentally sharp while you're in office. And it's crazy how common it is for these politicians to be dying in office, where it's like, how with it mentally were you? I mean, it's an open secret. A lot of these offices where the senator or the congressman is older, basically their staff does everything. They're the ones who are like liaising with like the party or lobby groups, deciding how actually to vote. And then the member is just kind of there, fill in the seat. They vote how they're told. Their family still gets all the perks, but they have to just kind of be in office at least. Mactronic Man, we have a minimum age for voting. Why not a maximum age? Well, that's funny because like in a lot of the private sector where performance is a lot more important than it is in the public sector, like we all acknowledge that, we all know that. Some places that are really competitive even have mandatory retirement ages, right? Like if you're at Ernst & Young, I'm pretty sure there's like a 55-year-old cap where they will push you out because they think like, I don't know how with it you are. We need the younger new blood. Versus you look at American Congress. How old is the average age? Hang on, US. Yeah, the average senator is 64 years old. The average representative is 58 years old. So the average senator is at retirement age, which is insane. And it wasn't always like this, by the way, in America. And in most other countries, it's not like this, right? Most other countries, politicians are still relatively young. Like, look how young Emmanuel Macron is. Even in the UK, for all of the problems they have, they're relatively younger politicians than what's going on in America. Jay Maloney, 1976, on Twitch. This is a good point. The Dems wheeled RBG to the Supreme Court when she was practically comatose. Yeah. Nirvana Rules on Twitch. People voted for him, so it's just as much on the responsibilities of the voters. Oh, don't get me started. I mean, we see like people keep voting in Lindsey Graham. It's like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing. Yeah. Kutrang on Twitch, Nancy and Feinstein were publicly declining too. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, nothing but well wishes for Mitch McConnell and his family. But like, this is kind of weird. So it's kind of like, it's giving Weekend at Bernie vibes, basically, that this guy we haven't seen in almost a month. We know he's having these health problems. He's still wielding this much power over the American government and all these laws where it's like we're not even sure if he's mentally competent. Okay, so here we have this from just a few hours ago from Kelly Jane Kramer. This is an extraordinary development in the ongoing questions surrounding Senator Mitch McConnell's health. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear has taken the highly unusual step of formally sending a letter to Senator McConnell requesting that he update Kentuckians on his health and ability to continue serving in the United States Senate. When a sitting governor publicly asks one of his own state senators to explain whether he is capable of fulfilling his duties, it's a sign that concerns have grown well beyond social media speculation. It's also remarkable that a Democratic governor is the one demanding transparency, while much of the Republican leadership has relied on brief public statements rather than providing clear, verifiable information that would settle the questions surrounding McConnell's condition. With the August 3rd deadline under Kentucky law rapidly approaching, a date that could affect the process for filling any Senate vacancy, the need for transparency has never been greater. Interesting. Yeah, so this happened just a few hours ago. So Scott Jennings, who I like, actually, he's good on CNN. He's entertaining. So he put out this post that is the one people have kind of been clowning on. It says, I spoke to my old friend Mitch McConnell this morning, the senior senator from Kentucky. He's still recovering in the hospital. We talked for just shy of 20 minutes about Iran, Ukraine, the unfolding situation in Maine, my visit to the TR Presidential Library, and even a bit of Senate history. I told him we want to see him back as soon as possible. So he's saying like, no, I spoke to him. He's sharp. He's with it. But no one else seemingly has heard from him. Yeah. And, so people are like Rand Paul weighing in. How do we ensure America is around for another 250 years? We passed the Save America Act and end birthright citizenship. While Mitch McConnell, who knows whether he's still, capable mentally of serving, but he's been a big roadblock to that. Someone saying there actually is a chance that rather than lying to all of us, all these GOP morons have in fact been bamboozled by a staffer using an AI rendering of McConnell's voice, which is what I'm hoping for because it's way funnier. Yeah. Laura Loomer, she's kind of been at the forefront of claiming that this is all, a ruse, that Mitch McConnell is, I guess, brain dead. Laura Loomer says the cover-up of Senator Mitch McConnell being brain dead is because the senators want to F Trump and not pass the Save America Act. Mitch McConnell is brain dead and hooked up to machines. He is 84 years old and was found unconscious and needed to be resuscitated. It's being covered up so that we never get the Save America Act because the Never Trumpers want more trans kids and they want more illegals voting in the country. Mitch McConnell fell in October of 2025 and could barely speak when he fell. Now we are supposed to believe that he's calling people from his hospital room, having elaborate conversations about philosophy and foreign policy. Are you high on Hunter Biden's crack? Guys, say what you want about Laura Loomer. You will not get me to hate her. She is funny. Okay. This video is from last year. Does it look like Mitch McConnell can talk? He is a vegetable. Pass the Save America Act. Don't let our country die with Mitch McConnell. I have elderly family, and I think about what his family must be going through. I hope the best for him, but it's kind of strange that this is just kind of normal for politicians to be so old that it's like we're unsure if you're actually cognizant. Okay, so Book Track Grooves, thank you for the Rumble rant. He says Sneeko is gay. We love Sneeko here. We can disagree with Sneeko, but again, like after I was raided by the FBI, Sneeko actually reached out to say, "Hey, hope you're okay." And when it was over, he had me on his show. There's no loyalty in 95% of like media and streaming. And so, when you're being investigated publicly by the FBI, when Merrick Garland is accusing you of like trying to subvert an election, like what happened to me, and someone still reaches out, doesn't take the opportunity to throw you under the bus, like I don't know, for me that means something. So no, we don't do the Sneeko head here, but he says why we don't talk about all the reps from each state. Well, there's a lot. There's like 435 different representatives, so there's a lot of them going on. Yeah. Dan 9847 on Twitch. If you can't be trusted to stand in the shower at home, you shouldn't be running the country. I don't know why that's controversial to say, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But the thing is, the reason why there will never be, I guess, like a mandatory retirement age or term limits is because the people who are responsible for that are the congressmen. So obviously they're not going to try to limit themselves. And I think the reason why now, more so than in the past, we've normalized being a politician for like decades or literally generations, like what, 40 years, is because it's easier. If you're a lobbyist, it's easier to just like buy one person and have them be in office for like 40 years than it is to have a lot of turnover. That just makes it more complicated. You have to like break in the new little puppet if they're there just for a really long time. They're more dependable. It's easier, less chance that they're going to rock the boat. Mactronic Man on Twitch, what streamers should buy you during that ordeal? So we stan on this channel, like they can say the most retarded shit and I'll disagree with them, but ultimately I will never like disavow them. Like we stand Sneeko, we stand actual justice warrior. Myron Gaines, he's also a real one. Like when it all came out, he was like one of the few people who was like, hang on, let's talk about this. Like, let's think critically. Hannah Claire Brimlow. Like there are some people who, like, bless them, actually thought critically about this and gave me the benefit of the doubt, like very few people did. Chrissy Mayer, also Angela McCardle. I mean, like, she's a real one. We love Angela McCardle. Best chair libertarians have ever had, and she did not deserve a lot of the grief that they give her. Hobuck on Rumble, if you can't read something, then repeat it, and 15 minutes later, no vote. Yeah. Dan 9847 on Twitch. Yeah, have any streamers apologized? I don't think so. And it's funny. Megyn Kelly, she's probably one of the people who went hardest after me. And I'd never had this wasn't like a betrayal because we were never friends. I've never interacted with her, but she clearly had a bee in her bonnet about me for some reason. She had a whole segment on her show dedicated to like trashing me. She's honored in my intro now. But it's kind of funny because now a lot of the same people who were throwing me under the bus are now throwing her under the bus because she has started criticizing Israel. And I just think that's really, really interesting. A lot of the people who she had on specifically to smear me now smearing her and calling her an anti-Semite. Not that I would ever expect an apology from someone like her, but it's just been that's one thing where I'm like, interesting. Oh, also, Ashley St. Clair, she really, really, she went for the jugular as well, which is funny because she had wanted to work with Tenet. We were like, nah, actually, we're good, thank you. But was it Hassan Piker? He's been subpoenaed in basically a similar way that I was, him over like Cuban or whatever. And she's like, making TikToks about how he's so hot. We need to free dumb, sexy Hassan. It's like when it was me that was being investigated, you were basically calling for me to be thrown in prison because you hated me. Anyway. Dan 947 on Twitch. I don't like Megyn Kelly because of the stupid way she spells her name. Yeah, it is one of those things. Well, it's kind of a win for her though, in terms of search engine optimization, because like when you type it that way, it's only her, right? There's like 1,000,000,001 Laurens even in this space. I'm not the only Lauren, but she's the only Megan. So yeah. All right, so now let's go over some of the clips that I have been hoarding like a squirrel to go over with you guys. Okay, so this one pained me. So I am a huge fan of The Office, the American version. It's my comfort show. I have watched it on repeat. I don't even know how many times. There have been periods of my life where it's basically The Office is just in the background. So I've seen it at least like from start to finish, probably 10 times or more. I love it. I'm like less into it now than I used to be, but I still love The Office. I have a shirt that says Schrute Farms. It's like a big thing. So like I don't like it when Rainn Wilson, who's the actor that plays Dwight Schrute, comes out and says dumb stuff like this on his, I guess he has a podcast now. But apparently he called out Ricky Gervais for telling actors to shut up about politics. For the record, I 100% agree with Ricky Gervais about this. By the way, Ricky Gervais, he didn't just tell actors to shut up about politics. He told actors to shut up about politics when accepting awards for their acting work, right? So it's not like Ricky Gervais said, hey, you're an actor, you can't also like be a well-rounded person, and part of that also includes probably having like political opinions and conversations. He was making the very basic point where it's like if you're at an award show for your acting work, the people who are watching it probably don't care about your politics, right? So like probably not a good idea to lecture people when you're being awarded for something totally different, especially lecture people on politics. Most actors don't know anything about politics. But anyway, let's see what Rainn Wilson has to say, and I will try to not let my image of him as Dwight Schrute be totally ruined.
One of the things that pisses me off to no end is Ricky Gervais saying, just take your actor award. No one wants to hear what you have to say. It's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
I mean, he's objectively right, though. No one wants to know what you have to say, which is why fewer and fewer people watch these award shows.
Guess what? Everyone gets to say what they want to say about anything.
Yeah.
Gaza, climate change, politics, you get to say it. If you're a truck driver, you get to say it.
Yeah.
If you're a school teacher and you're winning an award
living in this country.
and we have free speech. And
This is a room temperature argument. Everyone gets to say whatever they want. Yeah. Ricky Gervais is not saying that you should be prosecuted for saying something you don't like. He's just saying time and place, no one really cares, right? Which I think is a reality check a lot of celebrities need to understand that the average person does not really look up to you, especially when it comes to social or political issues. Like they think that you're probably maybe funny on screen, you're nice to look at, you're a court jester to most people. That's your thing. And so they don't really care what the funny man on the screen has to say about political issues because you're probably less knowledgeable than they are. So Ricky Gervais isn't saying you can't have those opinions or you literally physically cannot say anything about it on the award show. He's just giving you all a reality check that is probably not going to play well. Most people don't care. It's not going to ingratiate yourself to the audience. So, not advisable.
And, if people don't want to hear it, they don't have to give you an award.
And he's never put any limits on his speech.
No. And is it going to change, war or climate change with you saying something for 75 seconds after you win a Golden Globe? No.
Yeah.
But why would
But at least you get to look like a good person in front of your Hollywood friends. And that's, he's gotten to the core issue of it. Celebrities aren't going to change anything with a little speech at an award show. It's just a virtue signal to their producer friends that maybe they get a job because they agree with the political topic of the day. It's just to get a win on social media. And there are by the way, there are actors who I actually think use their positions of fame for good. And I think Angelina Jolie is kind of a good representative of that. She is partnered with the UN trying to do humanitarian work, trying to raise awareness about different issues, going to those countries, trying to bring aid specifically to those communities, help raise money for them. I think she's someone who actually cares. She does things differently than just going up, accepting an award and being like, hey, F ICE. What are you doing with that? That's meaningless. Like, and there are celebrities who I think, like, if you want to loan your fame and your platform to humanitarian work, like, hey, let's all try to help in this way specifically. Like, that's, okay, fine. But again, that's different than just waxing poetic about, like, oh, hey, I hate borders. And then, like, what does that do? And I'm thinking specifically of Billie Eilish here. Mectronic Man, Twitch. If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? Gervais to celebs. Dan947 on Twitch. Didn't Angelina do all that so she could collect her babies, though? No, I don't think so. I actually think, like, she's done a lot of that kind of work, as well as, like, she's collecting, like, foreign children like they were Polly Pockets. That's also happening. But I don't think it's so she could collect her babies. James, nondescript on Rumble. Actors talking about politics is like physicists talking about religion. Book on Rumble. I don't agree with many of her positions, but Jolie is like an old generation liberal. Like, she reminds me of just like a regular bleeding heart liberal instead of one of these woke, annoying progressives. So she's more tolerable in that sense to me.
You try and shame and silence someone from speaking their truth. I mean, it shouldn't just be for the sake of it. Hopefully what you're saying is well researched, and hopefully you're doing something about that cause that you want to speak to.
Yeah.
And it's not just kind of like, what is it? What do they call that? Mood signaling? No, what's it?
Virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling or something.
Okay, but that's the thing. For most of these celebrities, it is virtue signaling.
Like that. But I think that's utter bullshit. And I think everyone, from janitor to actor, you do not need to be an academic. You don't need to have a PhD. You don't need to be a politician or an expert to speak out on what moves you.
Yeah, no one said that. No, like, that was never Ricky Gervais's position. You don't need to be an expert to speak out about. Yeah, we agree, but it's just celebrities, know your place. Know your place. Okay, so we have Jasmine Crockett again saying some dumb stuff about, I don't know, black girl magic.
This 4th of July, I say celebrate a black woman that you know, because whether it's an invention that she made or whether it's the very democracy that still hangs by a thread right now, there is a black woman to thank for her contributions. When it comes to answering the question of what America owes black women, the answer is everything. When we think about the sacrifices that black women have made from the moment that we were stolen from our homelands and transported into this country,
it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Like, what is it? A misplaced ego. The U.S. owes everything to black women. It's really strange how it's black women specifically. And Jason Whitlock, whom I love, he's talked a little bit about, like, how gender dynamics work in the black community. And a lot of these black women, there's a sense of, like, it's a matriarchal system in a lot of black households because dad's not there. I mean, they don't really have a choice, but you can kind of see that in people like Jasmine Crockett, how they're used to the matriarchy. It's all about black women. Black women gave America everything. And it's just, there's no humility. I think there's no introspection as well. Kutrang on Twitch, who sold your people and caged you on the beaches to be picked up? Yeah. Anoctium on Twitch, they're the core Venn diagram of the Democratic Party. I mean, basically, like, black voters are the most dependable voters for the Democratic Party. So like 90-some% usually. The trouble is actually getting them to vote, but it's so strange. Oh yeah, so this is good. Caleb Hammer speaking to, okay, actually that one's longer. We maybe save that. Okay, here, this is a good one. So there's renewed calls right now to raise the federal minimum wage. I think it's still at $7.25, which is what it was when I was in college. And yes, I was making that my first job at college. But it's funny. The more out there, the more leftist, the more progressive Democrat politicians are, the higher they think the minimum wage should be. And so now we have Chris Murphy, who's not just some like nobody. He's he's calling for a $25 minimum wage, which would be a very big markup. And there are individual places that have higher minimum wages, right? There's like state and local minimum wages that could be anywhere up to, I think, $15, but 25 for a federal minimum. I can't stress enough what that would do to the economy. But let's listen what he says.
We are here to introduce a simple piece of legislation that stands for a simple premise. A minimum wage in the United States of America should be a living wage in the United States of America. This is the most powerful, the most affluent, the wealthiest country in the world. There is no reason that somebody should go to work full-time in this country and not be able to pay their bills, right? There is no excuse for it. In a world where we just created the first trillionaire, in a world where the top 1% of Americans collectively hold 13 times the wealth of the bottom 50% of Americans, it's not like we don't have the ability to pay people a dignified wage.
Okay, so you guys know I'm not a lulbert, but I'm also, and this I hate this about me. I understand how economics work. I wish I didn't. I would be a lot happier to just go along to get along. But minimum wage laws are absolutely retarded. They are retarded, and the higher the minimum wage is, the more retarded it is. A minimum wage is basically a price floor on labor. You cannot have labor cheaper than this. But the problem is that labor isn't just like, oh, it's what your worker gets to take home at the end of the day. It's actually also a cost that goes into basically everything, right? You're buying something, labor went into producing that. And so you're making everything more expensive when you introduce a minimum wage. And the people who love to advocate for really high minimum wages, it's so interesting because they're also without a doubt, like 100 out of 100 times, also the same people who are advocating for more immigration. So what you are doing is you're bringing in more low-skilled workers to compete against your own low-skilled workers. And then you're also simultaneously going to advocate for a really high minimum wage. So basically you're just screwing them over left and right in many different ways. So if I'm a high school student now, right, just like an average American high school student, and I'm looking for my first job, now the person who hires me, they also have the option of hiring like 50 different Mexicans who would actually be happier to work for cheaper. But also, if they hire me like on the books, because I'm an American, I have a social security number, they have to pay me at least $25. Have you worked with like a 17-year-old before? Are there a lot of positions where you think they're actually capable of giving you $25 worth of labor? Like as a business, that's something you have to think of. Like, okay, I'm going to be bringing in this much money with this many customers. If I have John, Mark, Sally, or Jesus around, I'm going to be spending at minimum, like, $100 an hour to have the four of them around. This is how jobs get cut. This is how shifts get cut. B Vargas 78 on Twitch, it just contributes to inflation spiral 100%. Nitronic Man, blue states trying to undercut the economic competitiveness of red states. And so like, it's so funny because a lot of these policies that are supposed to help like low income communities, they just end up hurting specifically the Black community. Like illegal immigration, if there's one community it probably hurts the most, it's the Black community, because a lot of the Black community depends on low skilled jobs, which are the same jobs that the illegals or just like even the legal Mexicans are going to be competing for. And then you introduce higher minimum wage. Well, that's just going to make like automation a lot more appealing. That's why there are self-checkout counters. That's why there are like self-order kiosks at McDonald's, because it's easier and frankly more efficient to spend a bit of an upfront cost to install this type of hardware that allows people to like order themselves, check out themselves, than it is to now spend $25 an hour to have some employee scanning stuff when the customer could just do it themselves. So you're hurting young Americans with this. And by the way, like you're complaining about wage stagnation. The illegal immigration, the mass migration of low skilled workers, that's directly responsible for the wage stagnation, right? I mean, like labor is just like any other commodity, supply and demand. If you drastically increase the supply of low skilled labor, cost of it it's going to go down. Electronic Man, I'm guilty of preferring self-checkouts. Like, yeah, 100%, honestly, because it turns out I'm actually just as capable or even more capable of scanning an item and putting it in a bag. So it's actually faster most of the time. Yeah. Redacted 987 on Rumble. Actual businesses have to actually care about what they spend. Yes. Yes. And it's like, this is why it's so hard to like operate as a small business. You know, like a lot of these places with all the regulations, including things like a minimum wage. If you're a small business, most small businesses fail or operate on really small margins. And now your labor costs, people like Chris Murphy, they want to like times by like, I don't know, like at least 3.5 times. It's insane. Yeah, you want to kill the economy. Great, good for you. But you care so much. Yeah, if you actually wanted things to be better for like lower income and young Americans, you would deport 100 million people. You would secure the border, and that would make housing cheaper. You would stop giving free groceries away. That would make groceries cheaper. But they're not going to do any of that because all that like they can only destroy things. They can only destroy things. Oh yeah, so Diane Abbott is from the UK. Black babies are still more than twice as likely to be stillborn. Okay, well, like let's just listen to this.
The Secretary of State will know that for very many women, they are never more vulnerable than in childbirth. And it's not just the vulnerability, but the horror of what women and their babies are exposed to in childbirth. And we see inquiry after inquiry, and nothing seems to improve. And very many of those women who are suffering in childbirth are Black women and their babies. And the Secretary of State himself said to me, Black babies are still more than twice as likely to be stillborn than white babies, and Black women are almost 3 times more likely to die during pregnancy or shortly after birth than white women.
So this, concern for Black mothers, Black babies, this is something we hear a lot as well in Canada and the US. This video is coming from the UK. I looked into things as well because obviously, we want mothers to be safe. We want babies to be healthy. These activists and politicians make it seem like it's just systemic racism, racist doctors, racist hospital, the racist medical system that is to blame for these higher than usual, like Black maternal deaths or Black newborn deaths. You look into the numbers, it turns out that overwhelmingly, this is due to pre-existing health conditions, with Black mothers experiencing higher rates of diabetes, higher rates of, just not going to your prenatal, your pregnancy appointments, maybe getting diagnosed and treated for things like preeclampsia, which can happen if you're diabetic, if you're overweight. And they just don't go a lot of times, even though like there are programs if you're low income that will actually pay for it. They still don't go. And actually, Allie Beth Stuckey, she put out a post that shocked me. I was surprised. I didn't know this. I double checked it. It's true. One of the leading, if not the leading causes of death, at least in America, for like Black pregnant women dying is being killed by their baby daddies. This is not an issue of racism. This kind of seems like something that Black women in the Black community need to fix themselves. I don't know how we outsiders are supposed to combat that. It's not good. It's not good for sure. But I mean, yeah, they make it seem like, oh, it's just racism. Black women aren't even safe as mothers. They act like, oh, we need more Black doctors. That's not going to fix it. That's not going to fix it.
The whole House wants to see progress made on this issue. But it isn't enough to have another inquiry. It isn't enough to have another report. What Black women and their babies want is equity of treatment and fewer Black women and their babies.
So they have equity of treatment, but it turns out what they don't have is I don't know, equity of actually following through with medical appointments. Okay, hang on. This is probably going to be the last video that or the last story that we'll look at, but I just saw this, like I got a notification for this on my phone. Let's look at it together. I want to see if, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. I don't want to log into WhatsApp. Okay, let me see if I can pull it up. So I don't know if this is just clickbait, but there's this article apparently claiming that Armie Hammer is slamming Citizen Vigilante. So is this true? Let's take a look. I'm just trying to get the link onto my computer so we can pull it up. Bah. Okay, so let's look at this. I'm reading this for the first time. Armie Hammer reportedly turns on Citizen Vigilante, calls film hateful and disgusting. Okay, let's look at this. According to a new report from Puck, Hammer was so shaken by the final cut of the controversial action movie that he called it hateful and disgusting, a dramatic reversal from the optimism he expressed just weeks earlier when promoting the project as his return to acting. Is that true? Okay, I'm not paying this. Let's just, sorry, I was trying to look at what the actual article Puck said, but Hammer stars as Michael Sanders, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there's a Grok thing on it. A July 7th Puck News piece cites a source close to Armie Hammer saying he was in tears after seeing the full cut of Citizen Vigilante and called it hateful and disgusting. Hammer reportedly only got 50 pages of script, knew it leaned right, but was shocked by the final anti-migrant vigilante story. The film has been widely slammed as racist or xenophobic. No denial from Hammer yet. Classic, I didn't sign up for this comeback story. Okay, well, unless we have a quote from Armie Hammer actually saying it. Okay, someone says that there's a community note on the story. Let's look at this one. Okay, the claims that Hammer called the film hateful and disgusting, was not given a full script and cried after viewing the final cut, come from an anonymous source. Hammer has publicly praised the film and its script in interviews. Okay, well, then there we go. We are going to assume that it's just unverified BS until he actually makes a statement saying otherwise. But in any case, glad that that's just kind of, it would be sad if the lead actor of this like big film comes out to condemn it, especially since it's been such a boost for his comeback. But in any case, we have a lot to talk about next show as well. We're going to be looking at the Sneeko Nick Alex Jones interview, Rupert Lowe on Joe Rogan. I'm going to take some time and gather some highlights from that, so we'll look at the best stuff. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been really fun. I hope to see you again Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And until then, take care. Raid Asman. How do I do that? I know there's like a raid command, but I'm not really up on it. If you put it in chat and it's like a command, I'll do it. But in any case, yeah, sorry to be a noob, but I will see you guys next time. Take care.